Good morning, good afternoon. Hi, everyone. My name is Ollie Fegan. I'm delighted to welcome you to the second session where we're discussing arena innovation. Today is a really exciting event where we have three wonderful people here talking about from very different experiences, also from very different parts of the world, talking about what premium hospitality means to them in very different sporting and musical arenas. So I suppose to kick things off, I'm going to do a quick just introduction to our three panelists. I'm going to start with you, Chelsea. If you want to give a very quick introduction to yourself and what you're doing at the Moody Center.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. I am the guest services manager at Moody Center in Austin, Texas. We opened back in April 2022. So I oversee all of our event staff, whether in general spaces and premium. So I help bring what our premium service and sales team has sold to our wonderful members and bring the operation to life.
Great. Thank you so much and welcome. Vicky, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Vicky Jaycock, and I'm the head of premium sales for Everton Stadium. Everton Stadium is going to be the future home of Everton Football Club, and the club currently play at a 130-year-old stadium known as Goodison Park. So I was brought on to recruit a sales team and then plan the go-to-market strategy for our off-plan sales as we make the journey to our brand new home.
Amazing. Very, very exciting times in Everton and Liverpool. Paul, last but not least, would you like to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, hi everyone, Paul Dermody. I wear two hats within Horse Racing Ireland. I'm the commercial and marketing director, but I also run the subsidiary of HRI-owned Racecourses. So we have 4 racecourses in Ireland, and racing is a critical part of the sporting DNA of Ireland. And on our racecourses, we can go back hundreds of years in terms of history of the sport. So looking forward to the chat today.
Great. Thank you so much. So I suppose we'll jump in quickly and just do a quick round to each of you guys just to understand a little bit about your setup and where you're based, what about the arena or venue that you have or stadium that you have, and then about the competitive landscape in your markets, which I think is also really interesting. So Chelsea, if you want to give us a quick introduction to the Moody Center from that regard and a little bit about when you opened and the journey to date.
Absolutely. So Moody Center, like I said, opened in April 2022. The only arena in Austin prior to that was the Frank Irwin Center, where the University of Texas hosted a lot of their sporting events, basketball predominantly, and then was a music venue as well. Austin's known as the live music capital of the world. So there's a lot of smaller venues throughout. But in terms of arena space, we're kind of that next generation and really brought a different level of premium hospitality that Austin had not seen yet. So we have 5 different premium spaces, one being our suite level. You see our loge boxes here, which lives on that level. 2 different types of suites, whether it be our sideline, your more traditional suites, our porch suites here that were inspired by Matthew McConaughey, who had a very heavy hand in the project that kept the space true to Austin and being very communal and getting to know everyone. And then we have 3 clubs, 2 or more within our general spaces, open concept. And then our third one, our Dermody Insurance Club, is a bunker suite. So it gives a little bit more of a speakeasy vibe to our members, where they can purchase a chef's table buffet, have premium drink available before exiting into the arena bowl. And then lastly, we have our Moet and Chandon Imperial Lounge. It is our smallest space, but it is our most premium product that we have to offer, that has a direct line of sight to the stage regardless of setup.
Great. And Chelsea, in terms of the audience that comes to the Moody Center, so you're obviously on the campus of University of Texas, but you're also in the music capital of the world. So, what is the split? And I suppose from a premium perspective, what is the breakdown of the types of clientele that you get?
We have everyone. The venue has something to offer for anyone. We've had the likes of Harry Styles, we've had the Eagles, we have a lot of American country-based artists come through, and then we have that university demographic and a lot of just, true Austin natives. It's becoming harder to find those natives, but they are very heavy-handed in, what we had to sell the dream on of what this building has become. And being that next generation of arena to what everyone knew at the Frank Irwin Center.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Vicky, would you like to give us an introduction to this project, and I suppose that it's really interesting from the journey, and then I suppose then how you are going to package the premium hospitality offering and where you are in terms of selling that as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be biased, but I do love this image. This is the image of the west stand of our brand new home on the banks of the River Mersey. For those who aren't too familiar with Liverpool, it's a maritime city, even though most people would have the thought of the Beatles or football as being running through the DNA of our famous city. But it is a city which is located on a stretch of waterfront. And we are moving our stadium from a 130-year-old Goodison Park, a very traditional football ground, to an innovative new generation. I heard Chelsea use that phrase, and we really believe in being a new generation to breathe life into the Docklands. The stadium that you see in front of us here was originally water, sitting on an old disused dock. So it has been a really challenging build for us to be able to preserve the features and heritage of the Liverpool City region and the maritime area, whilst also creating a stadium that looks contemporary, but also fits in and nods to the industrial area around the Docklands too. So in short, the context of the stadium home is that it's a place for all of the city's residents and visitors and our fans to come and enjoy not just match days, but really to breathe life into the whole campus throughout the course of the week and months. From a premium perspective, that means we need adaptable spaces. And rather than just anchor with a football theme, we've really taken inspiration behind the heritage of the Docklands. So this image that you see here, it's named the Blue Line. And that was after the famous shipping line, which connected Liverpool to the Far East. And so there's lots of these rich stories to tell about all the different cuisines that were brought in on the different shipping lines and boats, and how Liverpool was really the destination and gateway to the world. And so this space in particular, I really like because it dispels the myth that hospitality has to look and feel and taste a certain way. This is inspired, as I said, by the Far East. So there'll be great dishes which will be enjoyed as our fans would normally enjoy if they went to a Chinese or Pan-Asian restaurant. I think we might have a couple of other images here. Yeah. This one in particular is an artistic impression of another restaurant called Merchants. Again, a nod to the maritime sector. And we found that the behaviours of our premium guests have evolved, and that not all of our guests want to arrive 3 hours before and hit a marathon of courses, if you like. You know, many different courses served quite quickly before a game. Instead, we've taken the approach of a tapas style environment. So lots of small plates grazing around the environment that is served to guests in very social atmosphere. So the inspiration behind the interior here is almost like a Moroccan-themed South American-style tapas restaurant. And we found great success so far in our go-to-market plan, in that our fans are enjoying seeing spaces which they can relate to their normal high street experience and what they do over weekends with their friends. This is, again, just a sample of some of our CGI and spaces. The Yard is a brilliant space where it will bring all of our fans together before they then embark on the journey to restaurants. And we found, as our premium experience evolves, that our fans don't necessarily want to do the same thing each week. And so the Yard is a great bar to offer almost the first port of call before you then arrive or decide to dine in a selection of different restaurants. So flexibility is really the key for why we've created the Yard. It's a space that people arrive into and then depart from and then arrive back after the game. And that flexibility and choice of how to do a match day the fans' way has really been seeping through all of our vision for the new stadium.
Amazing, Vicky. And I think really important part, obviously Everton are known as the Toffees, but also known as the People's Club. And I think I'd love to, if you could just dive a little bit into the all theme that you have, or the all program. And I suppose it's really interesting why it's important. And, I suppose with the history of Goodison, why you're trying to get people into the premium experiences who mightn't have wanted to go there beforehand.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I think that would be a good context really to set the scene on the ambition of our project. At Goodison Park, there is great hospitality facilities, and they are slightly more traditional, but they are completely sold out each match day. There's 1,350 of those, and so we wanted to ensure that we can create the capacity that we have the demand for. So we stretched our inventory to 5,000 hospitality spaces, if you like, at the new stadium. But when we started to look at our approach to how we go to market and promote these spaces, the word hospitality just didn't seem to do justice our approach. And that approach is that we wanted to create spaces that were accessible to all fans, catering for all tastes, all ages, and offer a flexibility to be able to have lots of different experiences each match day. And as such, we decided to drop the word hospitality. It's actually banned in our offices, believe it or not. And instead, even premium didn't seem to wrap up what we were trying to do. So instead, we decided to unravel what hospitality is. And for us, all restaurants and all experiences. So our moniker is the word all. And it's quite an ambitious vision, and it really steers many of our decision making in terms of, are we ensuring that we've got as much diversity and appeal to all of our fan base as we possibly can? And so that tells the story a little of why we moved away from the word hospitality, and we instead shifted to a brand new vision and called that all.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll definitely get onto that later, because I think it's really interesting to get all your opinions on your different approaches. And I think it all comes back to who your guests are, which obviously then, change how you do it. Paul, it would be great to give us a bit of a flavor now, I suppose, about horse racing in general in an Irish context, and your 4 race courses, and what the premium hospitality experience looks like for you.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose maybe best to start off in terms of my own experience, having come from working in two previous sports before racing. Before racing, I was in Leinster Rugby, and before that in the GAA, which has the largest stadium in the country in Croke Park. And fair to say that the race day experience is very different to the experience at rugby or GAA or indeed football. So the hospitality experience matches that. So I'll probably talk a little bit about Leopardstown Racecourse as a representative of that. What we like to think, the way we like to think about the race day experience is that, it's how we put it is 2 minutes of action and 30 minutes of interaction. So on a typical day in Leopardstown, you'll have 8 races spread across 4 hours. So unlike maybe the other stadia we've heard from, where the action is very much focused for, say, 90 minutes on the pitch, racing is very different from that. So, we always say, to get the maximum out of your experience on race day, we want you to get around and experience different parts of the venue. So Leopardstown is a campus of 230 acres in South County Dublin, right by the motorway. It's a multifaceted campus that has a golf course, driving range, race course, and an event centre. So if you were to advise somebody to make sure they got the most out of the day, you'd want to make sure that they have seen the likes of the saddling area, where the horses are getting saddled up by their trainer, the parade ring, where the horses get paraded around the crowd before a race, the betting ring, which if you could see in one of the early pictures down at the front of the grandstand, and of course, the just on that second picture there,
Sorry, yes,
you can see the betting ring there at the front, where that white car is parked, where the bookies will stand and take your bets. So, and then of course there's the racetrack itself. So it's a very much a moving kind of day, and the flow of the racecourse is really important to get right. And that feeds into the hospitality experience and what we're trying to get across. So from a racing perspective, we're racing in Leopardstown since the 1880s. We're racing in the likes of the Curragh for 300 plus years on the same track for 300 years or more. So there's a great sense of history to it. In terms of our international positioning, we like to think of ourselves as being in the Premier League of a global sport. So Ireland is seen globally as best practice for the best source of horses, horsemen, women, owners, trainers, and the race day experience. So we're trying to reflect that on the race day itself. And we also try to leverage the exposure we get through the media rights we sell around the world. So our number one revenue stream comes from streaming of our races around the world. And that's an audience that, we're trying to make sure they get a little bit of a sense of the race day experience as well.
And I think it's really important for people to understand in terms of the sheer size of that. The racing TV revenue is bigger than, I suppose, the other sports like soccer, Gaelic football combined.
Yeah, we'd be the biggest media rights. Our media rights would be by far the biggest media rights income of any sport in Ireland. And that is reflected in how that media rights is generated. It's generated through betting income from us selling those races around the world. So there's whereas there might be in Leopardstown, there might be 20,000 people per day at our big festivals. You'll have 200 to 300,000 people consuming that race in 80 different countries around the world. So it's a good shop window for us. And thankfully, what we've seen post-COVID is a real significant increase in the traveling overseas audience we've had. So for our big festivals in Leopardstown, we're getting 30% of our attendees are actually coming from the UK market alone. So that's something we're really delighted with.
Wow. Yeah, great. So let's jump quickly on, I suppose, to the approach to premium hospitality. And I think Vicky sort of touched on it with the all, changing. So it's not about hospitality. This is about something that's for everyone. And I think it really comes through in that program, which makes incredible sense. Chelsea, from your perspective, how would you describe your approach in that you're in this fabulous, obviously fabulous arena, fabulous location in a great city. How do you see your approach then when you have a lot of obviously local competition?
Yeah, great question. So for us, Southern hospitality is a huge concept down here. And so that's really where our premium sales and service team focused on, because even though we have all these other venues and they have their premium spaces, we were entering a new chapter, especially opening after COVID. There was that demand for that exclusive opportunity for that premium element to get back out and, interact with either your party or, again, socialize. So that was really what we focused on, was selling that Southern hospitality that Texas is really known for, and especially Austin. But then also, from my standpoint, it wasn't just, having to learn how to operate these spaces to make sure that we were meeting the expectation that the members had of us while they were at the venue, but also creating premium elements in our general spaces. That way, even if you're a public ticket buyer, you don't feel different or separate from these premium opportunities and products that we have. And maybe it gives us a foot in the door to introduce you to what a premium space is. Oftentimes, at least here in the States, there's a pro team, whether it be basketball, hockey, football, that's where the premium is. And then the concerts are kind of secondary. Our venue is music first predominantly. So bringing that new concept in and selling the premium for a concert, that was different, that the area had not seen before.
Great, thank you. And Paul, actually, just jumping back to you quickly, obviously when you're dealing with venues that are 100 to 300 years old, which is pretty incredible, you probably have a lot of intergenerational audiences. Do you have to cater to your audiences? Does your approach sort of reflect that?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the research, when we ask people what number one reason they come racing, it tends to be socially driven. So they want to come, meet friends, meet family. So and then the type of occasion it changes depending on the theme that we have. So the average racecourse would have between 20 and 22 race fixtures a year. Now, we tend to theme those in particular ways. So during the summer in Leopardstown, we'll have 8 music festival nights, 8 Thursdays across the summer. We'll pay for a headline act, and it'll be music and racing. Whereas start of the year, our major jumps racing festival is Dublin Racing Festival, the first Saturday and Sunday in February. That brings a completely different audience. That is more of an older sport first audience who want to consume the best of racing with the best of hospitality. So it's a different thing. And I suppose the third maybe demographic that it's a revenue stream, but it's much more importantly a pipeline for the future fans is our student days. And now in other markets like the UK, student days, have had some negative connotations in terms of they've got a little bit messy. Who hasn't been a messy student? But in Ireland, we haven't had that issue, touch wood. They've been incredibly popular sold out events, which we see people actually coming back with their friends when they get jobs or come back with family. So they're different audiences, and the hospitality experience obviously will evolve. And we've got good caterers in Levy who can help us tailor that experience depending on the team.
Great. Yeah, like it's interesting, I suppose, how everyone has a different market, different needs. And I think actually if I pass you quickly, Vicky, and if anyone in the audience first has any questions, just please fire them in and we'll answer as we go. But I'd love from Vicky, from your perspective, so you're growing your hospitality. I don't use hospitality. I apologize. You're growing from 1,800 to 5,000 places, but I think you're having an awful lot of, I suppose, really interesting experiences. Are you reaching out to new audiences? Are you seeing new audiences coming in? And maybe tell us a little bit about how you're selling these premium experiences in the centre of Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. You will have seen me nodding away to when Paul and Chelsea were just both describing 2 particular points which really resonate with us. And probably as a side note, I think it's really interesting you put the panelists together from such different sports, yet we all have these kinds of common threads. And Chelsea's point around almost like blurring the lines between what general admission is seen as and then what hospitality is seen as is that it doesn't exist in any other industry. People just kind of flow between experiences and pay for it accordingly. And so we really are trying to move people out of boxes and say, again, choose the match day your way. And then if we kind of echo that to a comment Paul made regarding the social elements, he said the 2 minutes of racing compared to the social activity that follows. You could again relate that to football. We have 90 minutes of football, often, extra time, etc. But ultimately that hour and a half. Yet many of our fans use the ritual of going to the game as part of the DNA of their weekend. They may meet in pubs or cafes beforehand. They meet lots of different generations of fans. They've been doing things a very similar way for many years. And it's how we can gather all of that experience that they do anyway and really attract that into the stadium. And that was really the focal point, the foundations of how we were going to approach our experiences. It was not to create something entirely alien. It was instead to try as best we can to replicate those rich social rituals that take place in all the busy bars and pubs around Goodison Park, the great restaurants, and infuse them into the stadium in a different way. So that was probably just a nod to really the echoing of those points. But I think it's in terms of how we then sell that, it would be very easy to say, well, you're appealing to all, you've got all of these different experiences, some restaurants, some formal, some informal. Let's just show everyone everything, like reveal all, if you like. And instead, we have an approach where we release the phases of restaurants and bars carefully against similarities in our buyer profile. So we will first and foremost be very consultative with our market, and we've done that through surveys and consultations to ask, what type of day are you looking for? And that could be a corporate buyer who, may spend a certain amount usually and think that that means a sit-down meal. Whereas really we could just say, well, why don't you take a higher quantity of seats, but in a really social bar environment, and then you could entertain lots more staff or clients in a different way. So it was really the reset of what people expect. If you're ever going to do that, a brand new stadium is the time to take that journey. And as such, we found that we release in phases and we invite people to review. And if it's not right for them, we'll let them know that something is coming a little bit later in the sales process. So everyone feels like they don't have to just be shoehorned into something which might not be right for them. And then in time, we will have revealed all of the different offerings, but we do it in a very measured way. It's also worth touching on the Experience All showroom, which we created. I'm conscious it's a solution which is favoured, in the US, and I'm sure Chelsea and her team will have embarked on a sales centre or a marketing suite. We created an immersive journey where we invite our fans to come through and almost take the seat in the stadium virtually, using a mix of lots of different tools, and some of them we can touch on later. But it's very much about the reassurance piece of the emotional journey as much as the physical move to a new stadium.
Yeah, like
Sorry,
go ahead,
I was
Chelsea.
going to say, I share that sentiment, Vicky. I was not a part of the sales process, but our team, we couldn't do walkthroughs in a construction zone. So we had what was called our preview center that we all worked out of at some point, and it had a model of the property. And then there was this, creative immersive experience that our sales team and service team were able to kind of show the spaces in a more digital light to really immerse them into what we were trying to sell, what we were offering and bringing to life. And that definitely, they were amazing at it. We sold out of all of our premium spaces well before the building was open, before we were even officing out of it. And so they did an amazing job. And that's, I know we'll get into it here shortly, but that's where, on my side of the staffing element, where we really had to kind of hunker down and make sure the staff was ready to operate what had been sold and what had been promised, and learn where to pivot when the building told us that just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, like I think let's jump right in there, Chelsea, because that is such an important piece. It's great to build beautiful buildings and offer great products and food and beverages. But people are so important, aren't they? They really sort of are the ones who are executing the vision. Can you tell me a little bit about, I suppose, when you were opening the training process and what you do, obviously, now that you're open to keep people engaged and upskilling them?
For sure. So again, being the next generation of arena, we gave the opportunity to those that worked at Frank Irwin Center, the opportunity to apply. And when I first came in, the idea was to have, the two roles of part-time event staff, your supervisors, and then kind of your general, guest service representative. And in talking with our premium service and sales team, I was able to identify like we needed a third level to have a premium usher ticket taker role to really kind of maintain that access and what happens within the premium spaces. So we made a 3-tier program where everyone went through the same training. That way, if you eventually promoted internally, or just if you happen to be working in the space one day, you knew what the expectation was. It wasn't just isolated to our premium concierge members. It was an expectation across the board. Again, that way we're delivering the highest customer service and best guest experience in premium, but also our public ticket holders, they feel the same way. So within our orientation, we brought all of that in, what the expectation was from the highest level and not starting at the bottom and kind of working in a tiered structure. And I think that's really allowed us to maintain consistent quality across every space, whether it's the different tiers of premium or public into our premium spaces. I am a firm believer that the guest 100% deserves the benefit of the doubt in all situations, but I also firmly believe that the employees who work the space, who are kind of in the weeds with these members, they see how things are functioning, how they're not functioning. they deserve a voice to be able to speak up. That way, as management team, we can support them in building those relationships and helping to maintain those memberships, or even create new memberships and opportunities for our service and sales team. So we kind of maintain that idea of everyone is going to know what the updates are, not just the premium role. And then we have had an isolated training specific for those more fine details that we need to kind of cover as we begin to now evolve what the premium spaces are. They're sold out, they operate. Now we're trying to evolve it even more, whether that be through new spaces or new opportunities, with all the shows that we get, especially when somebody has to sit there and decide, oh, am I coming to this one or am I coming to this one? Or, they justify, let me come to both, and we're going to make, those double headers as amazing as we can.
Great. Yeah, really insightful, Chelsea. Thank you. Paul or Vicky, any thoughts?
I might just jump in on that. I mean, I think a lot of similarities to our own approach. I mean, we would have about 1,000 people on race day in Leopardstown working. Obviously, the vast majority of those not working directly for us. So you've got that challenge of making sure that they're trained to deliver on our message and deliver to the standard we expect. But also the dynamic, which is different to racing versus others, maybe, is there is a percentage of people who are coming to that race course to work, as in trainers, owners, stable staff, and so they need to be catered for and treated in a different way, because this is their workplace. Then there's a layer on top of that, which are our owners. So you could have anything up to 1,000 members of a syndicate or an ownership club who are coming, and they've paid for their horse to be there. They're fully invested. Every month they're paying toward their horse, and their horse is now coming to perform. Their expectations are significantly higher than maybe your general admission attendee is. And then you've got the general public. So how we try to do it is we bring in secret shopper surveys, and then that turns into regular training experiences for the staff and the staff of our suppliers. And then we work with the likes of Two Circles, which I'm sure plenty of the audience will work with as well, around the customer experience surveying and the NPS scores and so on that we fire out immediately after the race day. So probably similar to others, but it's just that constant focus on monitoring the trends in terms of customer experience on the ones that we know are going to be the real touch points.
Yeah, and how do you measure from a training perspective that you're being successful in that regard? Do any of you have any interesting KPIs?
I wouldn't say we have any interesting KPIs currently. Though we've been for 18 months, right? We're still in kind of an infancy stage. I have an open door policy. My first thing I do every morning is check our staff inbox. We're constantly having conversations with our staff to make sure that they're feeling empowered. I also believe, giving them the premium experience in their employment allows them to feel empowered to give this amazing guest experience. So we really start there and making sure they feel heard, making sure they feel seen, again, because they're the ones working in the weeds. So while we may have these great ideas, if it doesn't work functionally, then we have to pivot. We have to learn, okay, what elements can we control? What can't we control? And then devise a plan that way. So we try to make sure they feel that they have a say in what happens. This week we're actually preparing for our upcoming basketball season, but it includes, refreshers and some updates of the spaces. And there was a lot of good conversation that came out of it, things that we were aware of, things that we weren't aware of. So it's reminding them that they have a voice just as much. And if they don't tell us, we're not able to know, and we're not able to help make it better for them or for the member. We do have post-event surveys that our members can fill out, as well as the general public. And so we do kind of feed into those. We try to vet every concern out, capitalize on the high points and the shout outs that we receive. So we're looking from both the employee and the member side of what we're doing great at, what we need to improve on, what they would like to see, and then try to find ways to create those new experiences.
I personally echo some of what Chelsea's saying there, specifically for the new staging process, that we're so early in our journey of recruiting great talent and growing the existing talent at Everton it's ready to service the new stadium. But because the sales team usually go to market first, we are almost like on the ground. And so being able to have that two-way interaction so that we almost collaborate and problem solve together, so that, right from the showroom experience, a member of the sales team are empowered to be able to problem solve there and then, or come to weekly or sometimes in our occasion daily meetings to be able to say, hey, the trend is that everyone is times asking to be in this particular location with this particular benefit. And we almost use that as a sense check as we launch this, because staff have got to be empowered to be able to feel like they're part of shaping the journey, even when it hasn't been developed yet. So I completely echo Chelsea's point on that, like trust and collaboration rather than, this is the way it's going to be done, like off you go and deliver it.
Yeah, fascinating. There's a piece which Paul, you've definitely talked about. I know you're all talking about you've all very different audiences, but when you're talking about the syndicates, Paul, and like it's a really interesting piece where they're part owners in the experience. They're part of the creators of the experience. What you do from a personalization perspective to let the staff know who might be working, just casually, that these are the VVIPs and they're really part of the experience.
Yeah, so while we have different target audiences across the day, when it comes to the customer experience, we hone in on three particular categories: what we call game changers, game breakers, and money makers. So now that's something we've taken from our partners in Two Circles. It's not something I can claim credit for myself.
But you're going to copyright that one.
Yeah, but it is a very useful way for us to categorize the customer experience for each of those audiences. For the owners, as I said, they're the most involved in that they're paying for their upkeep of their horse every month. This is their cup final day to have a horse run at Leopardstown. So from the very first interaction by email, once the horse has been declared in the race, to welcome them, to give them the information around what they can expect from the day, who they should make contact with on the day, their tickets and their food. So every syndicate would get 4 free 3-course meals per horse. So you give them all of the information, where to go to access the hospitality. They would have their own private owner's bar area. They'd have their own badges and access wristbands, and then they can come and go from the parade ring back to the bar as they please. The parade ring, I suppose, is probably where the experience really comes alive, because it's the one place that you can only get in there if you are an owner, a trainer, or a jockey. So the amphitheater that is created around a parade ring, so you've got thousands of people looking on as you're on that stage, and that's your horse. That's the experience they're paying for, I guess. Now, obviously, the bits that is beyond our control is the performance of the horse, which, no matter what we do, is going to determine whether they had a good day or a bad day. But you can still do your best to make sure that everything else is catered for,
Yeah. Great. And yeah, like I think, is there anything, Chelsea or Vicky, from like a personalization, segmentation that you do that you think worth sharing?
I mean, from our perspective, again, I keep talking about, how we're kind of blurring the lines. I think at some point we've got to then look about finding commonalities between the type of audiences which arrive. And then we've certainly seen since post-COVID the demand for families to be able to be enjoying experiences together. I don't know whether it was the lockdown where everyone was kind of fused back together, that there's an opportunity really to have multi-generation experiences. And as such, we're trying to develop experiences that will allow, all ages of the family, maybe whether it's the granddad who wants to go and sit in the pub environment, and kind of have a natter about old times with the history of the game or some magic moments of times gone by. It could be the mother who's there and she's there with some friends, or it could be the daughter or some of the the teenage kids who actually want to be captivated by other interactions. That's not just those 90 minutes. So they may be on social media, they maybe want to gamify that experience too, interact digitally. And so it's about how we, in one booking of maybe a family of 6, how we've got these different demands from age groups. And so we segment in that way. But really, they all end up coming together because they're unified by those 90 minutes of football where, regardless of age or profile, everyone is, backing Everton to win. So it's difficult for us to kind of put people in boxes when they all come together again. But our vision for all is to try and, find commonalities within all.
I would say our premium spaces, there's different options, right? So we have 3 club spaces. 2 are in a more general open setting, whereas, one is a little more isolated in what we call a speakeasy bunker suite. Then you have the privacy of the suite level and our Moet Chandon lounge. So our service and sales team, they were really able to tailor, okay, maybe you don't want to be kind of in this private space. You want to be, in a more public space. So they were able to kind of help tailor and walk, their members through the different options that they had. And we even have some members that have multiple memberships. There might be someone who has a suite, but also has a membership within one of our club spaces. So they can, determine if they're going to give their suite to friends, family, or their company, right? And they can go sit in a more general area if they want to for, a different style show that they're looking to kind of interact more. And then we also have a membership that allows first right of refusal. So they have first access to tickets once shows are announced and go on sale before the public does. And if they opt not to come to a show for whatever reason, then those tickets go onto the public market, and it gives my team an opportunity to, blur that line a little bit and show them what premium options and products we have. That way, if they become interested, we've just created a new opportunity for our premium sales and service team. So there's different options across the board, but then, we have an amazing branding team as well that they create, public activations for anyone to take part in. So it really allows our service and sales team to say, hey, we have this going on as well, feel free to take part in it. We have some pretty amazing partners that do activations as well, not only to promote their brand, but to offer these, new insights into a product that someone may not have known. We try to stay very local to Austin and Texas. And, with a lot of individuals moving to the state, to the city, it offers an opportunity to really show what the city has.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chelsea. I suppose the holy grail for any business, especially in premium, is where I buy 4 tickets and you want to know who my 3 friends are. And is there anything that's working particularly well for any of you in that regard in terms of trying to, to build more identities? And then I suppose, does anyone have any good examples where they got those identities and then turned them into premium customers?
I might jump in on that one. What's probably unique to racing in that regard is race courses are platforms for our clients to make money for their own purposes. What I mean by that is you'll often have a race course being used for a local rugby club looking to have a race day fundraiser to bring their own members and use it as a money generator for the club. Or we'll have charity days. So a couple of good examples. Microsoft, who are our next door neighbors in Leopardstown, sponsored a breast cancer awareness charity day. So they raised over €100,000 for breast cancer awareness on a race day in Leopardstown. The other example is during the summer we have a property race day, which is run by a couple of the major real estate companies in Dublin, but it has become the must-have ticket for the property industry in Ireland. So whether you're in a bank, a law firm, or any professional services firm that's related to the property industry, there's a waiting list to get into that room every year. So it'll only fit 800 people, and there's a waiting list to get in. And again, they raise money for their own charities on those days. Now, it's a long-winded way of saying what we use then those opportunities as an opportunity for us to put our best foot forward in front of their guests. So you wouldn't believe the amount of intros it's created for people who've taken a table as a professional services firm, have taken a table at the property race day and said, I never would have considered racing, either as a staff engagement day or as a sponsorship opportunity, or I'm going to take my family next Christmas. Whatever it is, it has become a real hotbed for leads for us into those avenues. Now, Obviously, there's a data gap there that we haven't got the solution that rounds up the name and a number, an email address of everyone in the room, but at least we have the key people on every table and we can go from there.
Yeah, gives you some lead generation. Yeah, great.
I'll say, we are very, very focused on creating relationships across the board at Moody. So our service and sales team, they are always on site for events. So they're going and making those in-person touch points, they're checking in, they're making sure that everyone's happy. And so the members are naturally introducing themselves. Members are also, offering up their friends and family info at their discretion when they are able to bring someone and, they become interested in the products as well. And then, like I said, with our part-time event staff, they've grown with us. We've had an amazing retention rate since opening. 75% of our grand opening hires are still with us. And some of them that started in our host roles or general ticket taker usher role, they've promoted into premium or supervisor roles. And they've been able to just naturally have a conversation, not use it really as a sales pitch, but really just kind of being the ambassadors for the building and the spaces. And that's generated opportunity there. So it's not that it doesn't require work and, searching for new memberships, whether it's through partnerships or some, larger companies, but there's a lot of just conversations taking place naturally that lead into opportunities for new members to join our team. Or, when we have double header nights, right, our suite members, they usually have offering for the first night, and then that second night creates more opportunity for our team to show off the space to those that are interested or may have been on a wait list for a while. So we really just hone in on that human interaction that Austin's so well known for and personability. And that's been very easy and natural for everyone on our team to accomplish.
Yeah, you put on a great experience and they will come. Vicky.
Yeah, I was again nodding away, even trying to jot some notes down from that from both contributors, but especially when Paul mentioned that you may have one lead booker and you don't necessarily know who they're bringing with them. And I found that we need to then dispel the myth of it's difficult to organize a premium experience booking for a group, because we almost have to give a PA or an office administrator the job of organizing everyone. And so, especially when you were looking at larger bookings into suites, previously it's been seen by some businesses as being a resource to have to manage that. And so it's really a challenge upon all of us in the industry to try and make it as easy as possible for everyone to self-service. So that, we all probably know ourselves, we've been invited to different events, and too often you end up maybe Googling what the dress code is, or, I'm going to get what is the food situation, or, I don't want to bother my host because they're busy. So they go around different routes to find information. So I by no means have, the answer to this at the moment, but it's our journey that we're about to embark on to create a membership portal where guests can feel like they can interact without necessarily asking the host, oh, how much did you pay for this? Or what dress code do I wear? Or, can I bring my kids? Is it going to be too formal? And I think it's those, it's like just human psychology. Everyone likes to know, but you don't always like to ask if you've been invited. And so I think we really need to embark on how we provide all that information up front, because then that guest is more likely to then take it upon themselves to think, right, I feel relaxed on the way in. I know what's coming. And then that was really useful to me. So maybe if I book this in the future, I know my guests will almost have that reassurance piece. I don't have the answer to it yet. Yeah, so we're a way off opening, but it's certainly a challenge that I'm setting our internal teams on how we kind of get to that point.
Yeah, look, I think anyone who's organizing an event, you just want to make it simple for them to get, to get everyone to the table and have a good time. Chelsea, were you going to say something else there?
I was just going to ask Vicky, out of curiosity, when does the new venue open for y'all?
So we're due to complete a very challenging build. As you can imagine, building on the waterfront on a disused dock. We're due to complete our build towards winter next year, so 2024 we complete, and then we will make the decision on when the first competitive game is played after that.
Understood. Awesome.
Yeah, exciting times. In terms of, I suppose, tools that any of you are using to help, like obviously Chelsea and Vicky, I know Chelsea, you weren't there at the very start, but you're trying to sell premium spaces that nobody knows about, and you need to use some really good tools to make this, simple. And it's not just obviously when you open. This is something that you're always, there's always going to be, different partners coming in. Like, what tools really work that you would recommend for people to have a look at?
I can start with some solutions which we embedded into our experience center, our showroom, if you like. And we found that there's a demand for digital, because digital you can switch very quickly from different renders to different spaces. We have VR headsets which can transport people into different seat locations so that they can see the view. And digital is really going to be, a continuum for us. It's essential. However, when we talk about varying audiences, there are some who actually miss that tactile feel of, okay, I've got all this digital, but they want some reality. And we can't take everyone down to the building construction site. And so within our showroom, we actually use a mix of physical and digital, in that we've got the exact seat construct. So we have all the different seat layouts, and people can actually sit in a different level of padded seat. Some are heated, some recline. And so they can start to feel like the view is maximized by having a physical manifestation too. We have some of the fabric samples, again, to show that we are respectful of our Docklands environment, the rich wood palettes and timber palettes, etc. And then we've even really been fun with it and created our own scent. So while someone is journeying through the showroom, they are hit with all the senses of digital and, surround sound animation. But we created a scent which brings tones of like the River Mersey, which is sea salt and aloe vera and freshly cut grass for the pitch. So it's about really having fun with it. So if nobody just feels like if the digital is too much, they can kind of just play around with all the senses. So I just recommend getting really creative rather than just piling everything into, a digital solution.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. There's a lot of digital and creative opportunities that were used to, try to immerse the members into the space. We had a full mock-up of what the property was going to look like. I know there were some hard hat tours, kind of minimalistic for what we could get away with, but also having kind of those color palettes, having the seat styles available. I think having constant communication also worked, like letting the members know where we were in the process, successes and wins that had come at different stages throughout construction, and then being able to host them, for some private events. And now, as we're open and, always looking for new opportunities, really having that human interaction of, hey, come down to the building, let's do a tour. My team and our community affairs team, we kicked off a public tour program earlier this year. And, throughout our busy season, we can't schedule them as much, but we'll make time if a member wants to set up, for their company or for some friends and family. We work very closely together to, and they can speak to, how it operates and the realness of it after our sales and service team have, pitched them what the space and product has to offer. So it allows kind of for a multiple route street and conversation that you can ask all these logistical questions, but then you can come see it, feel it, touch it. So that's very important to us here.
Yeah, I might just come in on that. I mean, I certainly have nothing on that scale to reference from a racing perspective. We're quite low tech in that regard. Although I would say that 6 or 7 years ago, I did go through the sales process at Tottenham as if I was going to purchase a premium seat, and the use of technology. I'm sure it's way better at Everton now, 7 years on, but the use of technology was absolutely mind-blowing in terms of giving me a sense of exactly what I'm purchasing, the view I'd have, the number of steps to the restaurant or to the toilets or whatever. It was incredible. So I can really imagine what Vicky is selling at the moment. The one maybe learning we've had from a racing perspective is the Curragh Racecourse is a racecourse that we reopened in 2019. After an €82 million investment, we completely revamped the racecourse. On reflection, our decision to race throughout the redevelopment had a major impact on I suppose the perception of the racecourse, and it actually fed some negative perceptions before we opened. So unlike say the Everton Stadium, which with brand new greenfield site will have none of that baggage, for all the right reasons, we decided that we needed to keep racing throughout the rebuild. And as you can imagine, that had a massive impact in terms of the experience of people coming during those 3 years, in terms of the disruption, the review, the lack of facilities. But we did it because, not to bore you too much with detail, but because the races run in the Curragh are critical for creating stallions of the future. Those races have always been run over the same course for 300 plus years. So to protect the future of those stallions as they progress from racehorses to stallions, they need to be judged on that track. So we had to keep it open. But it did create a baggage that we're only really getting to grips with now, and getting people in to experience what a brand new racecourse looks like, the 82 million that's been spent. So if you had your time again, you'd probably look to close the racecourse in total and actually start with everyone on the same footing from day one, and accentuate the positives from day one.
Yeah, I think it's really lucky. It's lucky for Chelsea and Vicky that they're opening brand new arenas and they kind of can start from scratch. But I think we're coming to the end here, and thank you for that, Paul. It would be great to get any other lessons that you guys have had since you've opened Chelsea, and we'll probably start with you, and then Vicky. You know, from the sales process that you're doing at the moment, and that you think is worth sharing.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I've learned in this process, and it's funny you talk, Paul, about a renovation a couple roles ago, and I was at a different venue that went through a renovation, so I understand that sentiment. So, you know, from that experience and the experience of opening a new building, being flexible with everything. You know, there were days during construction, we had a plan, we had a route, and there's an infamous story about our now premium service and sales director. We had this route down, we were convinced of it, and I got a call from her, hey, it's gone, the route's gone, there's a wall now. And oftentimes you get lost in the construction, and I was like, no, it's there, I know it's there, I'll find it. Sure enough, there was a nice little silhouette of me in that new wall a couple hours later, because I was so convinced that door still existed. Being flexible and knowing that the plan is going to change quite frequently, at least through the first 6 months, until you really get a grasp. I joke that we call her Miss Moody in the building, that she's going to tell us what she wants and how she wants it to run, and she's going to laugh every step of the way, and she certainly has. So, you know, being flexible from the management standpoint, being flexible with the members, but also understanding of their concerns when it doesn't go exactly how it was planned, as well as the employees, is the number one piece of advice I could give.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way the Moody Centre's got a real personality.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not to be messed with either by the sounds. She sounds formidable.
You'll have to name the Everton Stadium, Vicky, next.
From our perspective, again, I'm coming just through the lens of the go-to-market for premium for all. And that is, you know, we have created these like brand new concepts, and we're aiming to mimic the high street as much as possible and future-proof. But there's also that demand for like. You know, there is an audience that say we like what we get in already, and so we're moving home and we want to go into that exact same experience. So whilst we were, you know, looking to innovate and build on new experiences, there's also certainly a reflection on, have we catered enough for what already works really well at Goodison Park? And so being able to shift into create environments, or maybe modify some packages to ensure that we have something that maybe is a little bit more traditional in terms of a dining setup with a 3-course meal and a menu and great seats and all of the facets that work well. You don't always have to reinvent everything. You can still harness some of that. That was the lesson for us early. And again, it's only possible if you keep flexible. And if we'd have released everything at once, it would have been difficult to do. So being able to modify as your sales process goes along is a key learning for us.
Great, thank you so much. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say,
last point though, Paul.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe the one thing that we've seen we've been most pleased with in recent years has been our ability to embrace other sports or other sporting events rather than see them as competitors to our day. We're all working in very busy, crowded sporting environments with loads of other things happening, and racing is no different. You take an example of our marquee flat festival, which was a month ago in Leopardstown. That happened to clash with the Irish Open golf and the first fixture of the Rugby World Cup. In previous years, we went, oh my God, how are we going to compete with that? We're going to have people wanting to watch those games. We actually turned it on its head and said, there's an 8 race card, there's 6 hours of sport to enjoy here live, but we'll also have the rugby live on a big screen. We'll have a panel of guest speakers from golf, rugby, and racing. And if you're going to enjoy the sport today, come to Leopardstown and enjoy it there. You get the best of food and sport all together. So it's probably a lesson in embracing rather than seeing them as competitors.
3 minutes of action, 30 minutes of interaction.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think like if I was to summarize, what you guys have talked about here, I think like flexibility really comes through. It's looking at your audience and, catering to their demands. And I think whether you're 300 years old or, brand new or like a year old, it's about thinking on your feet and really sort of, adapting your product, your service, and listening. And Vicky, where obviously Everton's, a very, very old and historic club and, the longest in the Premier League and all those amazing things, you're thinking on your feet as well here and listening to people and changing as you go to make sure that, everyone sells. But I think it's really important what you've all said as well is that the premium experience, like everyone should have a premium experience, whoever comes in, and there's just different levels of how fancy that is, if I was to use my Irishness, which I think is really important, that everyone, you're catering to people's budgets and also their tastes, and bringing back in what you're saying, Vicky, at the end, bringing back in that sort of, traditional experience where people want it. You have to keep listening. Guys, I just want to say a very, very big quick thank you to Paul, to Chelsea, and Vicky. It's been really, really interesting. To be honest, we could have stayed for another hour. There's so many more things to cover. But I think you really gave a flavor of 3 very different spaces, but actually with a lot of similarity, even though the sports and cities are different. So just a massive thank you. And if there's any questions, I think if anyone has questions, they can just ping a message now. But I'm going to do a shameless plug for we have a next session that's coming up on the 8th of November, where we are looking at how technology is transforming live events. And it's a little bit of a different feel here. This is very much bringing some people more from the technology space and what they're doing to shake things up, whether it's from Verizon, what they're doing in venues with Wi-Fi, and through to Anton, who's from Imagination, who brings a very different lens, which you will all find out in a few weeks. But I think, the takeaways here are really important. And I think I have one question, which I'm going to get to before we finish, because I am be very rude not to do so. Okay, someone's just asking to share the recording after. We've recorded this, and if it's okay with the guys, we'll make that available for you. But thank you so much, Paul, Chelsea, and Vicky. Really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me or Ushu and the panelists, you have our details. Please reach out and we'll pass it on to the guys, and hopefully they might give you some feedback if they can help. So
thank you. I was just going to make a point to say we could stay on another hour, but you may have noticed that the lights have been getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer throughout the call at first. So I don't think we've got the lighting for another hour in this office. So thanks everyone for the patience with me.
You have to keep shaking, Vicky, to keep the lights on. Stand up and have a bit of a dance. Great. Thank you all, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.